And today the talk is going to be about Hotwire, which is the new Rails technology that's been around for a while now. That's about automating a lot of server-side rendering work in Ruby as well. So I'm going to be presenting Helmer, the presenter today. So he's a senior software developer with over 9 years of experience in full-stack web development. He has a bachelor's degree in computer science. He has a comprehensive experience gained from full-time and freelance roles, which equipped him with a deep understanding for various market frameworks like Rails and Laravel, which are his favorites. He also co-founded a food delivery startup in Peru. His hobbies include biking, traveling, writing, and learning new languages like Italian and Portuguese. So without further ado, I'll present to you Helmer.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. Thank you to the Ruby community for coming here to the Montreal main presentation. Today we are going to talk about Hotwire in a very brief way. So this starts target, I would say, to beginners and advanced people, developers. And yeah, we'll try to explain it as clear as possible. And I'm going to try to cover the different things. And you will see some code demonstration as well, along with the slides. And yeah, then at the end, I will answer any of your questions that you might have. Okay, so this is the first slide. Probably you know Hotwire was a creation from the creator of Rails. And the goal is to avoid using JavaScript and to having these bundled steps into the pipeline. Something that it's really useful, especially if you are creating a new project. And also some people will discourage, will say, but anyways, in the future, you will need to learn JavaScript. I would say it's okay, but if you have the tools, if you have everything from scratch, why you don't follow the framework conventions? I think that, in my opinion, Rails and also Laravel try to follow that. They will try to force you to those things so you won't spend or waste any time, and you will focus on creating your product and creating features. So yeah, to start a little bit about me, my profile, Andy also told to you. So we're an engineer with 9 years of experience plus, mainly my three main language, Spanish, English, and trying to learn French as well. Backend developer. I work with also language, PHP, Ruby, Python, Node.js, and a lot of AWS. And as a front-end developer, I even work with the three main frameworks: React, Angular 2 and Plus versions, and Vue.js, and also React Native. Fun facts, many people ask me, can you understand some computer engineering things? This is also because when I was 9 years old, I got my first computer. I think that helped me to understand how a computer behaves, I would say, for any kind of user. And also former technical co-founder of the startup in Peru. We tried, two colleagues and me. We tried to beat the market, but probably you know what happened at 2020, so we needed to close operations. And then after that, I came here to Canada with all the knowledge that I got from founded for the startup. Next one. Goals of this presentation: learn how Hotwire Turbo works, especially these three main topics: drive, frames, and streams. And number two, avoid using JavaScript. Probably Andy likes that. Until you really need it, until it's really necessary. And so then we will see, we have for Hotwire, the three main components are Turbo, Stimulus, Strata. Today, I only covering Turbo. Covering Stimulus and Strata, it's out of the scope. And also because you can use the power of Hotwire in any other project as well, but that will require using JavaScript. But with Turbo, you can use using a gem, follow the Ruby way, I would say. All right. So here we can see the Turbo component, Turbo Drive. In theory, what it does, accelerates links and form submissions by negating the need for full page reloads. And this content that you can read over there, I took them from the page of Hotwire, and I would try to compress it in a single sentence. Then we will see Turbo Frames, which is decomposed page into independent contents, which is code navigation. and also can be lazily loaded. And also we have turbo strings, deliver page changes over WebSocket. I think that depending on your needs, you might or might not require. Or in response to foreign submission, you can use HTML and a set of curl-like actions. And also, this is out of the scope of this slide. It's turbo native, which in theory, with that, you can build also your iOS and Android applications. So very similar what React Native does. You can read this, it creates seamless transition between web and native sections. And now let's see about Turbo Drive, which in theory replaces HTML elements with the current page with the corresponding element from the response. Then we will see following demo, looking at the behavior of the code. You will see this is some sort of similar of Git diff. And this is because in the first render, it will paint what is in red, and then when you receive the content back from the server, it's gonna try to replace that content with the things coming in that response. If it's a little bit complicated to understand it, you will see it more clearly in the demo. So the green content is the new thing coming in the request. So it doesn't come the full HTML response. It only comes the things that it needs to re-render. Here we have the Turbo Drive actions, as you can see as JavaScript. Also, you can, in your JavaScript files, do the same actions as you will do with the Ruby gem. And for this one, we have navigate, we have replace, and also restore. But here it's very clear that in theory, you shouldn't be using the restore action because it's for internal use. And then if you want to write it in your HTML, in your IRB files, this is the way to do it. You can read it over here. You have a special property that you can use for data turbo action, and then you specify the action in the same way as you did it before. Either you can use each of these ways, so you follow the JavaScript way, you want to complicate yourself, or you want to follow the HTML way, right? All right, Turbo Drive reload assets when they change. One thing that we can do is we can add data turbo track, reload the link and script tags. And once you do that, by default, it's gonna your whole application is gonna behave like that. It's gonna try to pre-render anything, the content when you start, for example, hovering in a link, or when you want to visit any other link, it will do a pre-render. Same as the previous slide, you have the two ways. You have the HTML wave, which is a little bit complicated because in theory, you should take care of specifying the unique hash. I won't recommend that, so try to follow with the right way and with the help of the gem as well. In theory, behind the scenes, every time that you create a new compilation of your JavaScript assets, it's going to generate a new hash, so you don't need to worry about it. Now, just briefly talking about morphing, this is how you can configure page refreshes using Turbo Drive. You can specify that all the refreshes will behave like this. And for example, for this one, it's the content, it will morph, which it will say like you saw it in some slides before, the red versus the green content. It will try to transform everything that you have into the new thing. Similar, in some sort of similar what React is doing. We'll try to compare what do you have in your HTML and then what it can transform. And of course, you have the two different behaviors that you can specify for the content property for that meta HTML tag. You have replace, which is by default, which is replace the entire body of the page, or you can use more, which only replace the elements that have changed. Next one, scroll preservation. This is pretty useful if, let's say, you have a blog and read it in Rails, and then you have a lot of content, and if you want to go back and preserve where I was looking when I was reading a really long post, you can also send preserve as value of the property content. Next one, you can exclude some HTML elements out of morphing. And for that, you need to use the property data turbo permanent as well. And one example of turbo dry, this is a simple form code. As you might see, you don't, in theory, if you are using Ruby 7, if I am right, new projects will come with this by default. You probably need to do a couple of extra steps, but when I look at the gem file, Hotwire was already installed. So in theory, for using dry, you shouldn't be configuring a lot of things. This comes by default, and that's what you will see. You write this code in the right way. It's gonna behave. It's gonna try to use dry as possible. This is a little bit of configuration. Probably you remember in the past we have the progress bar. When you try to load a new page, it will show a bar and onto the top. And for that, with Turbo and Dry, we are gonna miss that feature. If you want to add it back, for example, you can set a delay to 0. As you might see, this is in your main JavaScript file. When you create a new project, you will always have at least one. And for then you can see this code. It's unrelated to this. This is only for configure the progress bar, so you can start to see it. This is unrelated, and this code is another way that you can see how you can use Turbo, but from JavaScript, from in JavaScript files as well. And you can see, for example, that you click on a specific button, let's say, then you can use Turbo to pre-render that content as well. But again, try to avoid using JavaScript. This is only for demonstration purposes. To know that behind the scenes, everything it's already configured. So let's pass. Yeah.
Can you enter into full screen mode? Maybe it would zoom things in a bit. The code is a bit small to see from there.
Let me see. What if I... It's because I can see it over here. Let me check.
If you not zoom it any further, it's okay. I was curious if you can zoom in a bit.
Yeah, because I am also trying to increment the zoom, but it doesn't seem like it is working.
No problem. Do you have your Mac Zoom enabled?
Yep.
Can you use that?
It seems like the slides has no feature to increase the zoom as well. Does that help a little bit?
I don't think so. It's okay, no problem.
Yeah.
Come closer to our, I guess I'll just get closer to our seats.
Yeah, we still have some seats over here on the top. And then let me get back to my main slides. Okay, so if you like to use the Turbo Gem, then in such case, what you need to do is do first for Fire to work. You need to put a guild for the head, so it's gonna inject code over there, and then you can start using, for example, some pre-made HTML content. For that, you will see that we have a lot of already pre-made functions that we can use. For example, you can see over here the best replace, and then the scroll reset. The same things that we saw as HTML, then it can be pre-made also with pure Ruby code. And that's a cool thing, so you don't need to code these things by yourself. So moving to the next one. Then testing in Turbo Drive. I know that sometimes in different Ruby meetings I try to ask about testing. And we will see that in theory, everything should work. By default, this is, oh, it's not loading. Give me a second. Yeah, it's there. Okay, so you will see that these are normal Ruby tests, and in theory, you will see then in my application, I will try to do the normal things, get an URL, and assert that the response was success. And then, for example, try to test if using my form, I can create, let's say, I am trying to create some job post, and then we can fill the content, and then assert that now once you created a new job, then you will have a number of total jobs plus one. And then assert that I was redirected, and then you can do similar tests. By the way, I'm using for this one, I think the framework that comes by default with Rails, which has the many tests, if I am right. And now, sorry.
Could you go back to the previous screen, the one that had all the helpers?
This one?
The previous screen.
It's no loading again. I think that I break somehow the connection. Let me refresh it. Yeah, this one.
This one, yes. Sorry, could you explain again what each one of those helpers does?
Yeah, with this helper, you can start creating, like in the same way, your HTML content. So rather than writing raw HTML and add the properties by yourself, you can put the method, and let's say you write normal Ruby code. So then you write do, and then the end, and then it will put embedded HTML content inside our Ruby code as well. So this is some sort of wrapper around HTML content as well.
Got it. All of them expect Ruby blocks, basically.
Yeah, those are Ruby blocks inside your ERB. Yeah, that's totally right. So, all right, so let's see the demo. I'm gonna share it quickly. This one. Oh, this looks better. Okay, so we will see the first link. We will visit how we can view a list of jobs using Turbo Race Drive. And now you might see this is a full square, but in theory, everything of this should work with Turbo Drive. I'm gonna decrease a little bit just for demo purposes. And then I think that I forget to add some tags. Let's see. Probably because. Just give me a second. Name tag. This is for. We'll see it in the future. Create a new job. Let's say you are looking for a senior developer JavaScript. And the job is
Ruby, not JavaScript. the whole point of the talk is to stop using JavaScript. I'm just joking.
Yeah. Let's see. Well, let's see over there. Status. The job. Let's say it's open, and with that, probably you saw a little bar on the top. That's with the JavaScript code that I edited as well, and also something that I want to demo to you. Let me see if I can show it. Okay, it's too small. Maybe command plus. I think that's enough. When we hover of any of these links, you will see it's trying to get especially an XHR request. This is something that's going to the backend. And even if I didn't click this link, it's going to try to pre-render it. And this is done by Drive. So in theory, when you will go back to this one, you already have the content pre-rendered in your browser. So for example, if we click here in Edit, we will see that the request was pretty successful, and you are really calling the edit URL. And as a preview, you can see this is a simple form without styles. And this is because it's expecting to pre-render that content. That also means probably your link that you want to visit is broken by somehow by your backend code. Those requests are gonna fail as well, and that happened when I was trying to develop this demonstration. And if we go to jobs, then we will see the list of jobs without any kind of styling. If we click it, the navigation is gonna be instantly.
Got some questions. I think there's one on the couch.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I was just wondering, does it cache at all? Because like it seems like it's preloading it every single time you hover over. Like, is it like pre-rendering once and then caching it so that you're not like reloading it every single time? Does it do any caching like that? Or?
I am not 100% sure and confident to respond that answer, because what I see when every time that I try to hover this link, it's doing a new call. So probably when you click this one, it would try and go to what your browser is stored as well. Otherwise, it won't make any sense why it's trying to call that link. So probably it's storing, let's say, in the local storage or somehow to know how to send back that content. And so it's not going to do another backend call in the future because it's already rendered in the browser. Yeah, Antti?
Yeah. I was just looking at the request and it was like jobs.
Yeah, you would still see that, right? But it would like the response time.
Oh yeah. In the not even know it's
Yeah, it was going to be a similar question. No, I was going to ask around the same thing because since it's pre-rendering a lot of things before you even click on it. I know this is a very simplified version, but like let's say a website that was a lot more complicated. Wouldn't that eventually like have some slowdowns? Like if you have a lot of users who are on it at the same time, you know, even if they're not really interacting with it, there's actions that's already taking place on the background.
Your question is if that's going to be complicated once you start growing in your user base?
Yeah, exactly.
It might. So you need to be very careful about which URLs are going to be pre-rendered. That's why you have the Ruby helper from the gem, so you can avoid doing these prefetches as well. And this is because you could have, let's say, a report URL, right? For report, you need to do a lot of joins, two different things. Prefetching that is going to be complicated to do it. But also at the same time, if you have a huge user base, probably you shouldn't be using that unless you know that report URL is going to be used, let's say, for 10 users, and even 100 users, it seems pretty low to me. But the benefit is that even if, let's say, any person is trying to go to that heavy URL, it's going to be prefetched in the background. So when they click that URL, it's going to be already pre-rendered as well. So that will speed up your web page as well.
Can I add another question?
Yeah.
All right. So since you're saying if you're really big, this is probably not something you should be using. Because my idea was like Turbo, this is gonna be great to get you started, but then if you're looking to scale, then because then at what point you have to decide when you have to transition to something else, you know. So
You don't need to change the technology or anything. You can turn off the prefetch.
okay.
Yeah, but if I can answer, this is not 100% answer, depending on the case. And most of your heavy pages, I would say that takes time to answer. They are not. They are slow not because the language. They are slow because probably your queries needs to be optimized. So yeah, it's gonna be a query problem, and you rather than use the action record ORM, in theory you should try to do an optimized query and prefetch it, or otherwise if it's really used. For example, in where I work, what we do is we put all the content into the Redis cache. Right, so we avoid to have this problem. So it's gonna call first the cache. We have content that is not changed so often, then pre-render that content. Otherwise, at that time recently do a database call, because database call, they are going to be always expensive. But of course that doesn't apply for startups, because they're looking to create more features at that time. So yeah, those were really good questions. And now I'm gonna get back to my slides. So then I come back to home. I will leave it open, and let's say, okay. So yeah, slides are still working. Give me 1 second. 15, 16, 17.
I have a question.
Yep.
Do you mind go back to the demo and demo a few more clicks just to see it?
All right.
Very fast. I just want to see it again.
Yep.
I think I only saw 1 click. I wanted to see more clicks if possible.
Yeah, for sure.
Demand more clicks.
Yeah, so you can see by every click, let's see, I am trying to hover. Look for every hover is trying to do a network call. And then we click it, and it's pretty fast now. Then it did this job. Then I cancel, I go back, but it will always try to pre-render that page as well.
And my understanding is that with Turbo, when you click, it doesn't refresh the whole page. It only does an XHR call. It replaced the part that changed in the page.
Yeah, and then
Content.
you can start using the replace, which is we saw it's by default, so it's gonna try to replace the whole body, or you can use more where it's gonna do a comparison of the HTML.
There's also some other things, for example, updating the URL. So this is nice, so that you don't
Yeah.
have behavior that, oh my god, it's done this, and then I try to bookmark and nothing works. So
Yeah, that's what it comes with by default by the gem. So that's why my recommendation is always try to use the gem rather than use custom implementations.
So to understand, basically, it's updating the URLs to maintain the browser history. So that
Yeah.
the back button
exactly.
successfully.
That buttons, all that stuff works.
Got it.
Not to make you put on the spot, what can make this demo really interesting is if you put asleep the control of some of the views where like to artificially slow down the rendering of the page, because then you would actually see the improvement, because by the time you recover, it would actually take the extra like 0.1 second, and then when you click it still be instant, right? Because that's what you're trying to see. All that to say, great work.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm gonna put it over this because probably in the future I'm gonna release an updated version of these slides. They're gonna have a fixed URL, so you can go back to that content. Okay, so thank you for the comments. Going back to the slides again, and now we are gonna see turbo frames, which is kind of interesting. Let me go back to my custom slides. Okay, so you can see here an example of a turbo frame. What do you need? Only need an HTML tag called turbo frame with a specific ID, and then the behavior as well. Same as dry, we have more, and we will see what other things we have. And this is pretty useful because with this, you can specify which content specifically from a page can be re-rendered. Let's say, for example, this one for basic frames, we have like we have a simple link, and we have also a for action as well. And you can use in Ruby, we will see in the next slide, how you can target and replace all the content from that turbo frame. For example, right now you will see you have 2 elements, but depending, let's say you use that form, and you can set back content that modifies the whole content of turbo frame, and it will update it. It will make more sense as well when I show the demo. And you have also eager loader frame. You can specify a URL that you want to preload. So in theory, the content, it doesn't matter. So you can put it as empty. But when you specify that source property, then it's gonna go to using Rails and try to prefetch that URL and render all the content inside of the turbo frame. And also you can specify that this content can be lazy loaded at the same time. We have different attributes for that TurboFrame HTML tag. For example, source, loading lazy, busy. This is managed by Turbo, so try to avoid using it. Disable, you want to disable the frame navigation. Complete as well, which is an internal property used by Turbo, and auto scroll, also managed by Turbo. And those who are managed by Turbo, try to avoid using it. For the other ones, you can be pretty flexible. For example, loading, for example, source, you can put whatever thing that you like to write. And now, if you are using TurboFrame using JavaScript, you have all these properties in theory. So this is just for reference. You have the same properties as the HTML. If you want to do some dynamic content, specific custom implementation, you can use it as well from JavaScript, as we saw as well for TurboDrive. But with the gem, this is going to be way easier. So for this one, I tried to put the Ruby tags, as you might see in the views. And down here is how it's going to be rendered. Let's say, for example, we are trying to pass a specific path to that source using the Ruby, and then it's going to be rendered like that. So at the end, it's the same for Drive. You don't need to use HTML custom implementation. Everything is coming within the gem. And also for more complex cases, let's say for this one, for example, you can also do it as well, and you will have embedded your HTML content. What else? You can also, for passing an ID, you can specify any of your records ID, and you will send it, and that Ruby function is going to generate and put a specific ID. You might see over here, combine it. For example, we are combining here the user ID with trade, and Ruby is going to do these things behind the scene. It's going to generate a unique ID. This is useful if, let's say, you want to create an edit form. Yeah, that's cool. We can also send shortcuts to the Rails URLs, and you don't need to put the full URL. You can take advantage of Rails, and then it's going to be rendered as well as you would expect. Next one. For example, this is an example using the gem functions. Take a look over here, the TurboFrame tag. And this is a custom thing that I did for this specific demo. I'm not 100% sure if this is the right way to put some IDs, but this is because I wanted to read that a specific HTML ID is going to be connected to a specific Rails controller. So this is coming from the job frame controller, and it's stored like a constant over there, like, for example, job frame ID. And so I will know then which ID is going to be rendering in my TurboFrame. And let's see the next one. And with HTML, you will see you will need to do these things by yourself. You might see it's the TurboFrame without using Ruby. And even you can use the same things over here. You can embed the IDs and then the functions. But that's way, for me, it's more complicated. So try to use always the function that come by default from the gem. Next one, testing, is going to be basically the same. We will try to confirm that we are getting the content, and assert it was a 200 response. That's okay. And also the form that we are going to create is going to redirect us to another URL. And now we have a demo. And for this one, let me go back. We'll clean. And we are going to visit this one, the list of jobs. But right now using Turbo Rails frame. And you might see that this content is already rendered, but then I will need to compare it with the current code. And one thing that you might notice, it's even if I click in create new job, this header with the hammer, which is a jobs, it never disappears. And why is that? You will see in the views, this is outside of the frame. So what it's doing behind the scenes, it's only changing the content, which it will be shown. Let me fetch it over here. You might see it. This turbo frame is gonna be re-rendered every time that I try to visit any new page. So jobs is never changing because it's already out of the turbo frame, and only is changing the content inside of the turbo frame. So we can click console as well, and we will see the same thing. You might see it. This is never disappearing. Maybe I can show a little bit of the code. I hope it doesn't take so much time. Give me 1 second. Share. Meetup. think this is good enough. This is the job frame controller. And you might see I am storing the ID that I'm gonna reuse between my different views in the controller. So it's gonna be easier for me at least to share those between the different views. So if we see the this function index, and then we go to the view, you might see over here that I'm trying to utilize that. We have the turbo frame tag also coming from Ruby. And if I'm hovering with the editor, you might see the different implementations already that comes where the editor is able to read that. And here is the hammer with the jobs. And then, yeah, I'm trying to render all the jobs that I have in my database. And then if we go to a specific view, let me see it. I think it was new. Yeah. For the new view, you will see that I don't need to put the whole layout, the whole HTML. I'm only specifying for this turbo frame tag with this ID, put this content and replace it into the other one, into the index one. That's why you won't see over here the hammer with the jobs title, because I am not touching that already rendered HTML. So if we go back to the other view, yeah, over here. So as long between your different views, you have the same turbo frame tag with the same ID, the different operation are gonna try to replace only the HTML inside and within this turbo frame tag. Is that clear to specify? All right.
Just one question.
Yep.
So if you go directly to the new view, how do you specify that this is sort of the base range here, whatever this the index or whatever, that has the jobs hammer at the top? How does it know?
Yeah, so at the end, what only you need to do, it's you will have, you will see this is, for example, the new action that is gonna render the form, right? And here we can go directly to the view attached or to that function. So you only need to specify and you only have to render the turbo frame tag, nothing else. So what it's gonna do, Hotwire, it's gonna understand that you are trying to replace a turbo frame tag in another view. As long as you only send this whole tag, it's gonna replace that content as well. So yeah, you are navigating. Also, the URL is changing as well, but it will try to replace that content.
But say it's a full page load, like I'm a recruiter who like created previous jobs.
Yeah,
And I've got job/new bookmark.
yeah.
And you go there. Does it know to render the hammer with the jobs first, or is it going to render just the form?
No, it will stay in the same page. You will see it over here. Okay, I don't know if you can see it. Oh, sorry, I'm not sharing that. I'm gonna change again to the browser. So are you able to see the URL? So it says job frame, right? Even if I do this, the URL is never changing. So basically, you are going basically to the first URL available. I would say the entry point URL, and then the content, it will be replaced. Similar things that, let's say, if we do in any front-end framework, like only try to replace this content, and the URL is never changing, as you might see it. So you stay in a single URL, but you can do this interactions as well. But behind the scenes, if we go back to network, then we click back to the list, and then you will see it's trying to pre-render again this content behind the scenes, same as a drive as well. But only the content with that turbo frame is gonna be replaced. This is a similar behavior to different front-end frameworks. All right, so yeah, that was also a very good question as well that I forgot to explain. And now if we go back, we have an alternative implementation with frames. And let's say we have Ruby over here, and we will see the code over there because this is a little bit more complex. So what it's doing in this form, I am sending back, once I process this form from the left where it says new tag, and the result, it's gonna be re-rendered in another turbo frame. So if we go to the code, let me find this one. Yeah, you will see over here, this is a turbo frame, which is also taking content from another view, from another URL, let's say from the new URL, as you might see it over here, I think. And this one, this is another turbo frame. And if we compare it, they don't have the same ID. This is tax frame form, and this is only tax frame. So with that, in my code, I can specify once you process the result of this form, please re-render this frame. Similar thing that you do in front-end framework with the components as well. So let's say if we create the tag, it will put it over here. Okay, I think Andy got excited with that, but yeah, it's true. Like you can do that without changing the URL, and we might see the content that is re-rendered again. It's from the tags one. All right. And let me go back to the code so you might read what's going on behind the scenes. Window. Okay, just give me 1 second that I don't see RubyMine. All right. Okay, for that, we are gonna go to the job frame, to the tag frame controller. And here are the two IDs. We have the list ID, and now we also have the form ID for the turbo frame. And you might see the code is pretty normal. It's like any other Ruby on Rails application. Of course, what it changed, it's also in the view. And here you might see this is the list, the new tag, the thing that you saw some moments ago. And you might see I don't put any HTML over here. I'd say take this content from this URL. So behind the scenes, it's gonna go to the new form URL, and it's gonna put it over here once this gets rendered. And then we have the form, the list over here. And for this one, just for demonstrate, I can also do the same. I can put this table content in another view and use it, source it, try to re-render it once this gets sent back to the browser. And it's already over there. And how this gets re-rendered from the form? Let me go back to my controller. And then we will go to, let me think about it. It's new. And for the new, observe this property, data. When you send data, that will mean that's gonna be taken by Turbo. And the result, once this form is processed, the result is gonna be sent to this Turbo frame in a specific. This is like to avoid sharing things within the same view. So with this, you specify the Turbo frame target. And if the Turbo frame target is within the same view, it's gonna try to re-render. This is how you can, I would say, trigger a re-render of any frame from another different frame, because right now, as you might see, we are located in the form frame, but this one is the list frame. So the result is gonna be sent back, and that's how the re-render happens once this form is processed. And this is how you can do it in the Turbo Ruby way. Now going back to the slides.
Helmer?
Yep.
I think we had a question. You told me still have a question.
Yeah. Go.
Just a question about like, so in scenario that we have like a big page like dashboard.
Yeah.
And we have like two sections that are unrelated, for example, like a top part and one in the middle between the footer. So they are unrelated in a semantical way. And like, if we have user behavior, we will change only the content of those two sections. So in that case, should we have like different turbo frames in terms of IDs for those sections? Or like the turbo frame needs to, pretty much like reload everything that you are setting up per section. So how does it work? It is per turbo frame tag that you reload a content, or is like per, let's say, ID?
So based on your question, you want to trigger a re-render.
Yeah, re-render
Right.
for specific sections based on user behavior, sure.
Yeah, you should be doing based on actions. So every time that you try to do an action, let's say to click a button, to, I don't know, let's say once the page finishes loading, that's why also you have frames into JavaScript. You can use it from JavaScript. Once of anything of those events happens, you should trigger the re-render. This is not happening like automatically.
I mean, like, for example, in the top bar and the footer,
Yep.
If we're reloading those like the turbo frame by iterating content in the database, so those two turbo frame tags have the same ID, or they are different?
No,
Like,
they
how
should be
does it
different.
define the ID is like, if we have an ID for this turbo frame, right, we pretty much like define the section that if we trigger, it only reloads that section, right? So the ID kind of specifies what we want to reload.
Yeah.
First, yeah.
Yeah. As you might see, I didn't try like a demo to make them render two different frames. In theory, the first thing that comes to my mind is probably if you can use JavaScript, you can trigger multiple renders. Maybe there is a Ruby while, but I couldn't find in the documentation any similar to that. But in theory, it should be possible. Okay, another good question as well.
I might have a different answer for this question.
Yep.
Normally, if you have multiple, sorry, I was going to answer. I have a different answer for you. If you have multiple elements on the page, that let's say you have one model that when you update it, there's other models that get affected by it. Quite often you'll pair this with Hotwire, and on the Hotwire, where you have an update of the model, you can use the DOM ID for the given frames, and those frames can be reloaded from the wire. So it's not part of this demo, but it's like the most common paradigm that you'll see. It's the pattern that they use for Hey.com. So they use DOM ID almost everywhere, DOM ID this, DOM ID this, and they update multiple elements thanks to the Hotwire that just like updates things on. And there's like a huge API on like, you know, it uses Action Cable, but you have the same replace and all of that you can append, you can do all kinds of stuff.
Should be much easier than into the actual game. So,
It is really, really neat. It's very powerful.
thanks for
Okay, thank you for answering as well. That was really useful implementation. Now TurboStream to try to finish. We still have some quite slides to demonstrate. The turbo documentation, it says that you should avoid turbo strings because that's of the last resources that you should want to implement. Because over the time, I think that they are trying to prevent you to make your code complicated and also to do like a lot of different extra string calls to your backend as well. So it was the recommendation by them, not by me. And we will see also how this is gonna update your HTML as well. Yeah, for TurboStream, we have different actions. We have more options, more close, I would say, to a front-end framework. For example, append, prepend, which is insert before, insert after, replace, update, remove, and refresh. You want to trigger additional behavior, then you should attach behavior using a stimulus controller, which is out of this talk as well. Because with the stimulus controller, then you will need to deal with JavaScript again. And now we have append, which that means that to your already rendered content is gonna be put into the button, right? So this is the way how you can use a TurboStream using HTML, raw HTML. You can send the action that how you wanna add the new content that is coming on, and also the target as well. Yeah, you also depend on IDs as well. We will see more of this on the demo. Right now we are talking about theory, and also you can specify prepend as well. You have also replace, which let's say you are trying to render in a table and render the appending or prepending things. You can replace a specific object as long you know the ID. And this is pretty similar to the answer before, that we should be using a specific ID, or we'll say model IDs. You also have update, and also you have remove as well. This is useful when you are deleting content and you want to disappear. Let's say you are deleting any of these jobs. And also we have before, which says insert the content with the template tab before the element designated. This is not like append or prepend. This is to, let's say you have 20 different rows with a specific ID, so it's gonna put it before that specific ID, only before of that, and then the after that element with the specific ID. You also have refresh. If you want to, let's say we are rendering 20 different routes, you can refresh the content of all of that. And yeah, you also can specify a request ID to make some debounce effect. For the testing, there are a little things that might change. We will see them over there. Specifically in this part, you will see in this test, I am trying to create a job application, right? But at the end, I don't send any parameter. That will be interpreted as HTML request. We will call it like a backend request. If you want to test turbo string request, we will need to specify when we do the post call to this URL, we send same as HTML backend request, the parameters. But for this one, we need to send it as turbo string. And then you're gonna do the similar test as you did it before. And next slide. And then we will see a demo of this one. Give me a second. So this is a bigger one. And now let's say we are going to create job applications. We have some tags, we have some jobs as well. And now the jobs are displayed over here. We only created one. We can put the applicant's name, the cover letter, and then it's gonna send a turbo string request that is gonna be displayed on the right. And this is similar to what we did with frames, but here you have plenty more options about how you can put or order your HTML rendered content. And as different of frame where you render the whole new view, I would say, here you can render only specific HTML parts, the same way as similar as front-end frameworks. So now let's gonna apply to this job. So let's say that my name is Santi, and I would say I love JavaScript. I'm gonna apply into senior developer JavaScript. And then we send a job application, and let's see. Now check into the content. We will have by default a pre-penned action that I put into the code, and it's only sending back the results of this content, as you might see over here. And it sent us, yeah, you might see the content type over here. It's very specific. It's a text and turbo string as well. And the payload, it's only, the payload is only the content of that HTML, but it's not the same as the other one, which it was understood as a HTML content send it back. This is more like HTML content that it's gonna be rendered once it get back to the application, because it's you could have multiple actions, let's say prepend, append, or a thing like that. Turbo string is gonna take care of that. It's gonna try to put the elements in the order as you would like. I can put also my name as well, Helmer, couple letter. I also love JavaScript. And then you might see, since we have the prepend action, it's gonna put the element on the top on the other one. And this might have been changed if I use append. Then in such case, Andy's gonna be first, and then I'm gonna be put after him. This is because you can specify how the turbo strings can put the elements as well. You recall we have also reload, we have before, after. So let's say if we have 10 different rows, and I will put any other candidate after me, then I can be very specific using the turbo strings as well. So I'm gonna share the code of this one. Okay, for this one, job applications. And the different thing is gonna be specifically in the create method. You might see over here that, yeah, I do the same as any other common race application, but you can have different kind of responses over here. So if you are going to use the turbo string, you can specify over here which view you want to use. For example, if you are using a partial, and then how it's gonna be put it into the HTML. You might see over here in this line, I also commented this one. This is if I want to be put into the bottom with the append method. And also we can try it. Yep.
Yeah, so it's just for the rows, is prepend and appending the only options, or could you like insert it somewhere in the middle? Like say you're sorting by some kind of column and it's not always going to be always at the start or always at the end. It might end up somewhere in between, or it could be at the start. Like it's dependent on whatever the column value is. Is that possible?
Is that possible as long you know the ID of the element where you want to put the content? Let's say if you want to use replace, of course, you will need to have the ID of the element that you want to replace. But if you want to use before or after, then anyway, you might need to have that that element, HTML element
Well,
ID.
It's not in the sense of replacing something like, I mean like a sorted insert, like inserting something brand new, but you don't necessarily want it strictly at the top or strictly at the bottom. It might end up somewhere in between based on some, like I mentioned, some column value of some sort that whatever you're sorting by.
Yep. There's also the same answer as long you know the element ID, or if you specify that element ID, that's perfectly possible. Another way to do it, it's, let me go back to the view. So over here, you might see that I'm trying to render a partial. So in theory, I should modify the code. So every row, for example, let me see if I can directly navigate. So you might see every row, it's having an ID, right? Basic with DOM ID. So as long you could have this ID in the backend, you can do such an action like that. So then you can send a specific thing. We can just briefly try it over here.
At that point, you might just want to double this over, and you have already.
Yeah, I'm just like trying to think of edge cases here.
Yeah, just to add something, I had the same problem once, and my way to solve it was I just used the CSS property position, and so everything had a position, I had the order there, and I could append or prepend or anything, and the browser would just take care of the order for me. So
Yeah, I was trying to demonstrate that we have all the options over here, but for some reason it's not showing up into the sharing screen. But let's see if I can just briefly demonstrate this. What happens with the pen? And then we save. I think that we are forgetting something. Oh,
It doesn't look like
Yeah.
syntax, right?
Oh, probably I forgot to did anything because I don't know if it's okay.
So at the start of the line, there's still the turbo or something. Turbo stream. The very start.
Yep, you're right.
Then maybe
It's already an ID bug, I think. Yeah, we have the same ID. Probably is the editor, which yeah, it's a comma. I'm checking onto the terminal if everything is all right, and then if I go back to this one, we're gonna try to re-render. Now let's see if I can see it at the bottom. You will see why it changed the order. This is because by default, when I refresh the page, now it's executing the real action record method. And for that one, I am not making any kind of order. The previous one, it was only the turbo string putting the element on the top. But when I re-render it, at that time, it really executed the method from the backend. And it didn't it didn't do any operation, I would say, at a browser level. So now let's say any random name, like I'm I don't know, Bill Gates or letter. I don't know JS, but anyway, he's applying. So if we see a pen, yeah, it's now put it into the button. So with this, we can demonstrate that you have control over your rendering, and then we will see over here the action is now a pen, and then the target is this one. Yeah, and I think I saw you.
I have a question. Could you show us the view code for the turbo streaming?
For sure. Okay, for the turbo stream, all of the code is over here. This is only a partial that I did. Let me see. Yeah, it's this one. And also for this one, it has to have like an ID. As you might see, I don't need to create in like in the other case, like a turbo frame. I'm only sending a specific ID for that. And with that, when I send back this turbo stream content, it will always try to look for this ID, and it's gonna try to do the operation as it is known as well.
Because my question was, you mentioned that it's recommended that we layer turbo streams on top of a basic turbo implementation. So the view does not change. You just have an ID on an element. That's it. And then in the controller, you tell turbo streams do a prepend or an append or whatever.
Yeah.
The operation is got it.
Yeah. Every action is specified in the controller. You might see that I changed it from prepend to append over here, and it's like in this ID, please use this partial and send back these variables as well to try to put to do a re-render and put the content where I specified to you.
So about the format, if you're layering TurboStream on top of an app that started without TurboStream, are you saying you would have another format as well for rendering things the normal way?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, you have also by default, for example, and this one is try to render the things by default. I'm only implemented TurboStream in the create. In theory, you should be able to do it also for index as well. But for that, I don't know. I will prefer to use maybe a turbo frame and only TurboStream when I need to. Let's say if I already rendered in 1,000 records, I only need to add one. So I don't send it back the 1,000 rendering again rows. I only send it the new one that I created using my form. That's where TurboStream is pretty useful. And yeah, that's pretty much. It doesn't change at all as well. Let me go back over here.
When it comes to layering it on top, you can also pass in TurboStream things as just another ERB template. So if you have like show.html.erb, you can also have show.stream.erb or whatever the syntax is, so you don't actually have to change your controller all that much.
Got it.
Yeah, that is total true. Thank you for the comment. And yeah, you might see over here, this is only to display the content in this specific ID as well. Yeah. Nothing so different to what you are really, I would say, used to use into your common Rails application without using JavaScript at all. The only thing that I used JavaScript was only, I think, for showing the bar. And just quickly go over here. This thing that it was in another slide, but you might see in this application.js file, you can also use Turbo, and I bet that you can use frame and different things. It's not loading right now for some reason, but yeah, you should be able to do the same behavior from this one. But as long you have the gem, which is over here, and this is by default, it already came when I created the project. So in theory, you should be able to use this. And now going back to the slides. Okay, this one. Turbo strings.
By the way, I just wanted to make a comment.
Yep.
So 2 months ago, I demonstrated Glimmer DSL for web. It actually supports all of those features, but in my opinion, in a much simpler way. Also in Ruby code, in a much simpler abstraction than Turbo and Hotwire. So I recommend that you guys check out the talk from 2 months ago. It's in the Montreal.rb channel on YouTube.
Yeah. I would also recommend as well looking at this presentation that we have. That way is I would say the 100%.
By the way, great talk, amazing
Yeah.
presentation.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
your way it's
It's
100%
just,
Ruby,
was
I would
comparing
say.
it to Glitter in my head.
Yeah.
Glitter is even simpler and a lot simpler actually.
And
it
this
does all of that too.
and this way is if you still want to have a chance to use your JavaScript knowledge as well. And you might see on the links, I will leave all the slides as well, so you can see how I prepare my slides, and also the demo repo, which already has I'm not sharing this one. Let me go back. Oh, for sure. Yeah, it also has some tests over here, and you might see the green check. So if you want to go in some way how I prepare the test, they are already over there into the test folder. And then any questions apart from what you have already made? Yeah, I think I was pretty clear.
Also, we asked you a lot of questions.
Yeah.